Hey Mary, it's Jack with Umber Landscaping. I'm here to walk you through the design. I think first we'll go over the hardscapes, which would include this walkway here, this rockscape that goes through this way, and the back patio, and then some of the bigger flagstone in the back. First things first. This is a colored flagstone, which is really cool. This is an image of what that looks like. You've got this crest kind of arching over this way, another crest arching over this way, which adds a lot of dimension in there. And then on the inside of that is some flagstone, what we call steppers. So this would be like, compacted gravel base of 6 inches. You've got the stones placed. You've got mortar edging on the outsides along the perimeters to lock everything into place. You've got poly sand in the joints, etc. It's a much more complicated process. Now, I did want to offer you the utility of having this rockscape and this walkway without, as much of the cost. So we could arch out this way and keep the material the same and the job the same, so you've got a solid walkway surface. But I think that prevents us from, as you can see, some ground covers coming through in between the rocks and a little bit more of that feng shui, just natural feeling. I think this is not only more cost effective, but slightly more cost effective, but it also serves the purpose a little bit better. So that's the walkway and this little rockscape. In the back, you've got the same, for continuity's sake, colored flagstone as a small grill area. And then some larger steppers through here. These would be ground. They kind of look like they're popping up out of the ground. Obviously, when we install them, they'll be nearly flush. Now, there is a little bit of base prep when it comes to these flagstones, which includes compacting gravel underneath them just so, they don't sink over time. That's basically it. You want to keep them at the right level to walk on, but, it's not a whole bunch. Obviously you excavate a little bit, put a little bit of gravel down, tamp the gravel down, put the flagstone down, and make sure it's level that you want it, and that's all that really takes. So definitely a more cost-effective route when you're considering, adding a bunch of what would be like a fully installed walkway. I guess next we can go through the plants. This first one is delphinium. This next one is this one right here is garden phlox. This one right here is bee balm. This one right here is geranium. This geranium is a cool plant. It will spread, but it's not an aggressive spreader, so it'll kind of mound up, which will serve a purpose in different spots because it does repeat elsewhere on the property. Some Shasta daisies, delphinium. This is catmint. You've got some dianthus bordering the walk here. This is wild bergamot. This is salvia. This is a stilby. One thing I did to change up kind of the aesthetic is a couple dwarf mugo pines. These are evergreens, so you'll be able to enjoy those during the winter at least. If you want to add more evergreen elements, maybe a couple evergreen bushes along this row here or something like that, so you've got, some greenery during the winter time. And then more along the front, you've got yarrow. You've got more Shasta daisy, more garden phlox. Alright, this is bee balm. More wild bergamot. That's the garden phlox. You've got some daffodils in here like you had asked for. Some more geranium. And then one cool thing about the walkway is we would plant, if you like the idea, we would plant this creeping phlox throughout, which will kind of spread into the cracks between all the rocks and look very cool. And then some creeping thyme to kind of change the pace about midway through. Another cool thing is when I do these rockscapes, I like to put, stone crops and sedums kind of popping out on each side. So you've got a dazzleberry sedum, you've got a Carl Forrester sedum, you've got a dragon's blood stone crop, and then a little bit more of the same stuff on the other side, kind of mirroring. And I think that about covers the front except for this Japanese maple. We can go into specifics. I'll write the quote out for, just your run-of-the-mill regular Japanese maple. But if you want to do some type of, weeping willow Japanese maple or something more extravagant, you can let me know. And then on the left side here, we've got this big leafed hosta, some Pallas purple coral bells. These are Midnight Lady Ligularia. They look green in this design, but they're actually purple. This is some Black Beauty snake root, also a shaded perennial that will get a little bit more verticality to change the pace up. This is Delft Lace Distilbe. It's a shaded Distilbe that will grow in this spot nicely. Some more big leaf hosta and some more Ligularia at the end there, right here. And then on the right side, to keep things a little bit less hectic, we've got some Pachysandra ground cover, and we've got some English ivy ground cover. Now, one thing to consider is these are kind of our only options for ground covers. I mean, not our only options, but the two of what I think are the best options for a shaded ground cover. Over here, we can use creeping thyme, we can use garden flux, that's all great, but over here we have to be a little bit more moderate because it's a shaded area. More Delft Lace Distilbe over here. You've got the patio. You've got the beautiful blackberry bushes. More big leaf hosta. This would go to the end here. And then over here, we could do something like we did in the front with the creeping stuff in between, but I just wanted to border it with some geranium because I think the geranium will kind of create the same effect without making it, completely engulfed. I think this area would be nice to have a little bit more freed up. Japanese painted ferns along the garage here. More Pallas purple coral bells. And then you've got 3 hostas and another Ligularia over here in the corner. A couple more things to mention. Obviously, you can't tell in the design, but this would all be graded off of the house. Like we had spoken about, you've got the window wells on the sides, so that gives us the ability to go higher with the grade. And I think that about covers everything. Maybe one more thing to mention would be the property line. I know that you had said you don't really want a border there. We could do this. I left this area blank because I'm not sure if you want perennials along here too, because obviously all this stuff has to be, cut down every spring and fall, or cleaned up in the spring and cut down in the fall. So, it does have to be worked on. I don't know if you want to leave this area clear. We could even do a decorative stone, maybe, with some very low maintenance perennials to make it, a maintenance-free zone so your neighbor's not like, oh, these plants are going into my yard or whatever. That would require a border. So we can take a look at this quote and decide what we want to do on that side of the house, if anything. So, yeah, let me know what you think.